Have you ever made a decision that changed your life forever? Sometimes, the choices that promise the greatest freedom become the very ones that leave us feeling lost. We chase excitement, success, or a new beginning, believing happiness lies somewhere beyond the horizon. But what if everything we've been searching for has been waiting for us at home all along? This is one of the most powerful stories Jesus ever told. It is not just about a son who walked away from his family. It is about forgiveness that seems impossible, love that never gives up, and a father whose arms remain open no matter how far his child has wandered. Long ago, in the peaceful countryside of Israel, there lived a wealthy and respected man. His estate stretched across rolling hills covered with olive trees, vineyards, and golden fields of wheat. Servants worked faithfully from sunrise to sunset, caring for the land, harvesting fruit, tending sheep, and preparing fresh bread in the courtyard. It was a home filled with peace, abundance, and purpose. The man had 2 sons. The older son was dependable and hard-working. Before the sun had fully risen each morning, he was already in the fields, faithfully caring for his father's land. He understood responsibility and found satisfaction in honest work. The younger son was different. While everyone else appreciated the comfort of home, his heart longed for something beyond the distant hills. He dreamed of crowded cities, exciting adventures, endless celebrations, and a life where no one could tell him what to do. As the days passed, those dreams became stronger. One morning, after wrestling with his thoughts, he made a decision that would change his life forever. He walked across the courtyard toward his father. The servants noticed him. The older brother paused from his work. There was something different about the young man's expression. His father looked up and smiled warmly. "My son," he said, "what is on your mind?" The younger son took a deep breath. "Father, give me the share of the property that belongs to me." The words hung heavily in the air. Silence filled the courtyard. The servants stopped what they were doing. The older brother stared in disbelief. In those days, a son received his inheritance only after his father's death. By asking for it now, the younger son was speaking words that no loving father should ever have to hear. It was as though he were saying, "I care more about your possessions than I do about you." The father could have refused. He could have corrected his son. He could have demanded respect. Instead, he looked into the eyes of the child he loved. Behind his calm expression was a heart breaking with sorrow. Yet he understood something every loving parent eventually learns. Love cannot be forced. Sometimes, the people we love must be allowed to make their own choices, even when those choices lead them down painful roads. Without raising his voice, the father quietly agreed. Over the next several days, he divided his property. Land was sold. Livestock was counted. Silver coins were gathered into heavy leather pouches. Everything that legally belonged to the younger son was placed into his hands. The estate no longer felt joyful. The servants whispered among themselves. The older brother struggled to understand why his father would allow this. But the father never complained. His love remained stronger than his heartbreak. Finally, the morning of departure arrived. The younger son packed his belongings into a leather travel bag. He carefully counted his silver one last time before tying the pouch securely to his belt. His heart raced with excitement. This was the moment he had dreamed about. Freedom. Adventure. A brand new life. His father walked beside him to the entrance of the estate. For a few moments neither of them spoke. Some goodbyes are too painful for words. The father simply rested his hand on his son's shoulder. His eyes were filled with love. Not anger. Not bitterness. Just love. The younger son nodded quietly, then turned toward the open road. Step by step, he walked away from everything he had ever known. The familiar fields disappeared behind him. The vineyards grew smaller. Soon, even the family home faded into the distance. But the father remained where he stood. Long after his son had disappeared beyond the hills. Long after the servants had returned to their work. He continued watching the road. Hoping. Praying. Waiting. Because true love never stops believing. Meanwhile, the younger son smiled as he looked toward the horizon. His pockets were full. His confidence was overflowing. He believed the world was finally his to explore. But he had no idea that the road ahead would take him farther than he ever imagined, and teach him a lesson he would never forget. The journey was long, but the younger son hardly noticed. Every mile carried him farther from the life he had left behind and closer to the future he had imagined. As the quiet countryside disappeared, a bustling city came into view, its streets alive with merchants, musicians, colorful markets, and endless excitement. This, he thought with a smile, is where my real life begins. At first, everything was exactly as he had hoped. He rented a comfortable place to live, bought the finest clothes, and spent his days enjoying every pleasure money could buy. Lavish meals filled his table. Music echoed through grand banquet halls. New friends surrounded him wherever he went, laughing at his jokes and praising his generosity. The silver coins his father had given him seemed endless. Whenever the younger son paid for another feast, his companions cheered. Whenever he purchased expensive gifts, they celebrated him. For a while, he believed these people truly cared about him. Night after night, the celebrations continued. The city sparkled with excitement, and the young man convinced himself that he had finally found happiness. But happiness built on wealth is often more fragile than it appears. 1 coin became 10. 10 became 100. Before long, the heavy leather pouch that had once overflowed with silver began to feel strangely light. The younger son ignored the warning. There is still enough, he told himself. Tomorrow would take care of itself. But tomorrow arrived faster than he expected. One morning, he reached into the pouch. Only a few coins remained. Soon after, they too were gone. The luxurious meals disappeared. The fine clothes began to wear out. The celebrations came to an end. Then something even worse happened. A severe famine swept across the land. The markets that had once overflowed with food now stood nearly empty. Crops failed. Prices soared. Hunger spread throughout the city, and everyone struggled simply to survive. Desperate, the younger son searched for the friends who had once filled his days with laughter. He knocked on their doors. No one welcomed him inside. He called their names in the marketplace. They turned away as though they had never known him. The people who had loved his money had no interest in loving him. For the first time since leaving home, he was completely alone. Day after day, his hunger grew worse. He searched everywhere for work, but no one wanted to hire a penniless stranger. Finally, one farmer offered him a job. It wasn't the work he had imagined. It wasn't the life he had dreamed about. His task was to feed pigs. For a Jewish man, this was one of the most humiliating jobs imaginable. Every morning he walked into muddy fields, carrying buckets of feed while the animals crowded around him. The smell clung to his clothes. His hands became rough from hard labor. Yet despite working all day, he earned barely enough to survive. His stomach growled constantly. As he watched the pigs eat from their feeding troughs, he found himself wishing he could eat the same food. The young man who had once sat at tables filled with the finest meals now stared longingly at food meant for animals. It was the lowest moment of his life. One evening, after another exhausting day, he sat alone beside the pig pen as the sun slowly disappeared below the horizon. Silence surrounded him. No music. No friends. No celebrations. Only the sound of the wind, and the painful weight of his own choices. Then something remarkable happened. For the first time in a long time, he stopped blaming everyone else. He looked honestly at his life. He remembered the warmth of his father's house. He remembered the servants sharing fresh bread together after a day's work. He remembered the kindness, the peace, and the love he had so carelessly left behind. Tears filled his eyes. "What have I done?" he whispered. In that quiet moment, surrounded by failure and regret, the younger son realized that true wealth had never been the silver in his pouch. It had always been the home he had walked away from. And with that realization, a single thought filled his heart. Maybe, just maybe, There was still a way back. The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, the younger son made his decision. He could no longer remain where he was. With nothing but torn clothes, worn-out sandals, and a heart full of regret, he began the long journey home. Every step felt heavier than the last. As he walked along the dusty road, he quietly repeated the words he planned to say. "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Please, let me become one of your hired servants." Again and again, he whispered those words, hoping they would be enough. He didn't expect to be welcomed home. He didn't expect another chance. He only hoped his father would have mercy on him. Meanwhile, back at the family estate, life continued much as it always had. The servants worked faithfully in the fields and courtyards. The older brother continued managing the farm with the same dedication he had shown every day. But there was one thing that never changed. Every day, the father looked toward the road. Morning after morning, evening after evening, he never stopped hoping. Then, one ordinary afternoon, something caught his attention. Far in the distance, a lone figure slowly walked toward the estate. The traveler was thin. His clothes were torn. His head hung low with exhaustion. From that distance, no one else could recognize him. But a loving father recognized what everyone else could not. "It can't be!" His heart raced. Without thinking twice, he lifted his robe and began to run. The servants watched in surprise. The older brother looked up from the fields. No respected elderly man would normally run like this. But this father wasn't thinking about dignity. He was thinking about his son. The younger son looked up and froze. His father was running toward him. Not with anger. Not with disappointment. But with tears of joy. Before the young man could even speak, his father wrapped him in the tightest embrace he had ever known. The son could no longer hold back his tears. "Father," he cried, "I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son." But before he could ask to become a servant, his father interrupted him. "No, my son!" He held him even tighter. "You are home." Turning to the servants, the father called out with joy. "Quick! Bring the finest robe and put it on him. Place a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Prepare the feast. Today is a day of celebration." The servants hurried to obey. They gently removed the young man's dirty, worn clothing and dressed him in a beautiful new robe. A family ring was placed on his finger, restoring him as a beloved son, not a servant. Fresh sandals covered his tired feet. The father smiled through joyful tears. "My son was lost. And now he is found. He was as good as dead. And now he is alive again." Within moments, the quiet estate was transformed. Music filled the air. Lanterns were lit across the courtyard. Long tables were covered with fresh bread, fruit, roasted meat, and sweet wine. Neighbors gathered to celebrate the miracle everyone thought would never happen. The father looked at his son with overwhelming love. He didn't ask where the money had gone. He didn't remind him of his mistakes. He didn't make him earn forgiveness. Instead, he chose mercy over judgment, love over condemnation, grace over punishment. The younger son realized something he had never understood before. His greatest treasure had never been his inheritance. It had always been his father's love. And now, after losing everything, he had finally found what mattered most. As the celebration continued, music echoed through the family estate. Laughter filled the courtyard as friends, neighbors, and servants gathered around the feast. The home that had once known sorrow was now overflowing with joy. But not everyone shared in the celebration. The older brother had spent the entire day working faithfully in the fields. As he made his way home, he heard music, dancing, and the sound of cheerful voices. Confused, he called one of the servants. "What is happening?" he asked. The servant smiled brightly. "Your brother has come home. Your father has welcomed him back safely. He has given orders to prepare a great feast because his son has returned." The older brother's smile quickly faded. Instead of joy, his heart filled with anger. he couldn't understand it. His younger brother had demanded his inheritance, wasted it on reckless living, and brought shame upon the family. Yet now he was being welcomed home with a celebration. Unable to hide his frustration, the older brother refused to enter the house. When the father learned what had happened, he quietly stepped away from the celebration and went outside to speak with him. "My son," the father said gently, "why won't you come in?" The older brother finally poured out everything he had been carrying in his heart. "For all these years I've worked faithfully for you. I've obeyed your commands and never turned my back on this family. Yet you've never held a celebration for me. But this son of yours wasted everything you gave him, and the moment he returns, you welcome him with a feast." The father listened with compassion. He understood the pain in his older son's heart just as much as he understood the brokenness of the younger one. Placing a loving hand on his shoulder, the father softly replied, "My son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But today we must celebrate. Your brother was lost, and now he has been found. He was gone, and now he is home." In that moment, Jesus revealed the true meaning of the story. The Father represents the heart of God. The younger son reminds us that no matter how far we wander, God's mercy is always greater than our mistakes. The older brother reminds us to guard our hearts against pride, bitterness, and resentment, and to rejoice whenever someone finds their way back to God. The greatest miracle wasn't that the younger son returned home. The greatest miracle was that his father never stopped loving him. Perhaps today, you feel like the younger son. Maybe you've made mistakes you wish you could erase. Maybe you've wandered farther than you ever intended. Or perhaps you're like the older brother, struggling to forgive someone who has hurt you. Wherever you see yourself in this story, remember this truth. God's love is never exhausted. His mercy never runs dry. His grace is available to every person willing to return to Him. No one is too broken. No one is too far gone. No one is beyond the reach of the Father's love. That is the timeless message of the Prodigal Son, a message that has brought hope to countless hearts for generations. If this story encouraged you today, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more cinematic Bible stories that bring God's Word to life. Before you go, we'd love to hear from you. Which character did you relate to the most? The younger son, the older brother, or the loving father? Tell us why in the comments below. And if this message reminded you of someone who needs hope, forgiveness, or a fresh start, share this video with them today. You never know how God might use it to change a life. Thank you for watching. Until we meet again, may the Lord bless you, keep you, and remind you every day that no matter how far you may wander, His love is always waiting to welcome you home. God bless you.